Are you sure?
Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never ask a bride why she's getting married. Don't wear a skirt on a windy day. Deodorant is not a shower. Don't sniff chili flakes. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Almost perfectly timed with the election victory of Donald Trump was the fall of the government of Olaf Scholz in Germany. When I say fall, it's not as if the government is fallen right now, but this is inevitable. There is a vote of confidence on January 15. Looks very, very, very unlikely that this is going to survive. But this is also not something which is uncommon to Germany. I think all of us got inured to a long period of stability under Angela Merkel of 16 years, but Germany is a system designed for unstable coalitions. As we go along, we'll talk more about it. And to help us understand the implications of this very important order on AMU's minority status, I will have our legal editor Bhadra Sinha join in once we have finished talking about Germany. So please stay with me. I'm back to Germany now. Let me tell you first what has happened. What's happened is that Olaf Scholz has fired his finance minister, finance minister being Christian Lindner. And this was a dispute over fiscal responsibility. Now, this could very much be a debate playing out in India, except in India, there is never a debate over fiscal responsibility because all parties are equally irresponsible when it comes to fiscal responsibility, and routinely every party takes a holiday or takes a moratorium on its commitments under the FRBM Act. So deficit can go up, can go down. Finance ministers can then promise that by next year I will get to this much, next year I will get to this much. That said, this year at least our finance minister kept her commitment of keeping it within a certain limit. However, this is still way below what was mandated earlier in our own FRBM Act. However, the important thing is the contrast in Germany is that the Chancellor and his finance minister are fighting over fiscal responsibility, and the finance minister is actually fighting in favor of fiscal discipline. Finance minister wants to maintain fiscal discipline, to keep deficits low. The Chancellor wants more money spent, more welfare, and fewer austerity measures. The finance minister, for example, is so committed to fiscal responsibility that he's even talking about abolishing certain ministries. He says abolish the German Ministry of Foreign Aid. It can be made part of the foreign ministry, so some jobs will be saved, some establishment costs will be saved, and maybe some aid money will also be saved. So these are the things, many things among many things that led to these disputes. Now, these disputes are understandable in a coalition of such diverse parties. This is a coalition of three completely diverse ideologies. So Germany, as I told you, is a very complex system. Germany is a country where you don't even know what the eventual number of its national parliament will be, what the eventual number of MPs in its national parliament would be. Notionally, it is 598. Now, these are elected half and half. Half go first past the post system, that is 299. The other half, proportionate representation, that is another 299. However, it doesn't quite happen that way. When a German voter goes to the polling booth, she, or in these times I should say they, irrespective of what's happened in the US elections, I should keep to some political correctness, when they go to a polling booth and look at a ballot paper, the ballot paper has two columns. The first column is the first vote, the second column is the second vote. The first vote is called Erststimme and the second vote is called Zweitstimme. So the first vote and the second vote. So the first vote is very much like our first past the post system. So if one candidate gets even one more than the next candidate, the candidate wins. The other side has proportionate representation. So each party then says, these are my leaders, these will be, or maybe this will be my shadow cabinet, this is my ideology, vote for me. So people don't have to vote for the same party's candidate on this side or that, but even if they do, it will not quite work out that way. That one party is so popular that they win all of the seats on this side and they also get 100% vote on the other side. So they rule the country like that, or they get a majority. So normally we would think 299 seats are going on the basis of FPTP, first past the post, and 299 proportionate. So very simple. One party, party A, gets 150 seats here, and on the proportionate basis gets another 100. So हो गया 250, लेकिन वो नहीं होगा. That is not how the system is supposed to work. So it's not as if the question I raised in an earlier Cut the Clutter on this was that do the Germans see votes on this side and votes on this side as apples and apples or apples and oranges? They see them as apples and oranges because each vote means something else. However, the way they mix them, they don't put them in a grinder. They don't put them in a grinder and homogenize them. They make a fruit salad. And how that fruit salad is made, again, I'm oversimplifying it. How that fruit salad is finally made is to create some kind of a balance between the apples and the oranges. So neither dominates. This is a complex system. You need to do a lot of reading to understand it. But this is my journalist's way of trying to explain it to you. This is to ensure that nobody gets overwhelming political power in Germany, either ideologically or politically or even in terms of personal popularity. That's very important. The entire German system, I know the question was coming up from you that why is the system so complex? The whole system has been deliberately kept complex so nobody would ever get a majority in Germany. Why? Because the Germans suffered a great deal because of majoritarianism. Hitler got a big majority. And why did Hitler get a big majority? Because before Hitler, there was the Weimar Republic. Weimar is a place in Germany where a new constitution was adopted in 1919. Interestingly, in India, when you say 1919, we'll remember Jallianwala Bagh. That was the year when Germany adopted a new constitution. Because of that constitution, what came in was called the Weimar Republic. In that one, because of pure proportionate representation, a lot of parties got chota seats. Chota parties got a few seats, and they could never agree with each other. And governance went for a toss, and people got really furious, and that led to a big, huge majority for Hitler and his Nazi party. And we all know the consequences. All of the world knows the consequences, but nobody knows the consequences better than the Germans. So they decided 1949 onwards, after the Second World War, when they reconstructed their country, to build a democracy where nobody can get a majority. So how this works is, I tried explaining it in an earlier episode of Cut the Clutter, of which I will share a link with you. But this has become even more complicated since then. So I told you 599, that is the notional strength of the Bundestag, or as parliament is called in Germany. Half and half. Half first past the post, half proportionate. However, then you come to overhang votes. So what happens is, suppose you get, say, 70 seats on the first past the post side, but you have enough votes on the proportionate side, that on the second vote, to get 100 seats. Then this doesn't get you 170 seats in Bundestag, because if that happened, then a very popular party will be able to add this and that and get a majority. What happens is, it's a bit complex. I am simplifying it. Don't rely on my simplified explanation or overly simplified explanation. If you want to write an answer in your UPSC exam, please go to primary sources to read. But for simplicity of understanding, if you get 70 on this side and enough votes to get 100 on the other, then you deserve to get 100, but you only had 70 candidates win. So you will be given an addition of 30 over 70. So your total will remain 100. So your total comes to close to what is the higher side. It will work the same way if you got, say, 60 on this side, but enough votes on the proportionate side to get you only 40. So this balancing is made, and these additional seats that are given are called overhang seats. As you are given overhang seats, others are given what is called as leveling seats. And that's how these additional seats keep coming up. That's the reason what is 599 usually becomes more. In the last election, it became 736. That was the peak. So the current Bundestag is 736. And that's why we need to understand the numbers there. The current coalition partners, SPD, which is the Social Democratic Party, the leading party, has 207 seats. And the Greens Party has 117 seats. And FDP is the party from which the finance minister comes, that is Free Democratic Party, that has 91 seats. So together these three have 413 out of 736. Now, because the finance minister has been fired, obviously his party has also left the coalition. So that is 91 goes out of 413. So it's fallen well below the majority mark, which should be 369, because 413 minus 91 becomes 322. So this is now a minority government. Now, what has Olaf Scholz tried to do? One, he says, I have a budget to pass. So he's defying his main opposition party, which is CDU, Christian Democratic Union. Now, that is Angela Merkel's party. That is a little bit right of center. He is defying them. He's saying that, look, do we really want to not pass this budget, veto this budget? Because this means this budget also brings in defense budget increases. It also brings in more aid for Ukraine. So I defy you to bring down my government. Otherwise, I'm calling for a vote of confidence on January 15. Now, Germany, once again, it's such a complex system. January 15, even if he loses his vote of confidence, which most likely he will, because the numbers are simply not there with you, unless his main opposition decides to sustain him in power, which is also very possible. It's happened in Germany. I will come to that. Germany is a very, very peculiar country. Or sorry, I should not call a country peculiar. I should say Germany is a really unique country. So we will tell you about how. Can you imagine if BJP and Congress decided that they will form a government together, right? Think about it. But things like that happen in Germany, and happened in Germany over long periods of time. We'll come to that. Now, what will happen? 15 January, when he loses power, his government falls, there will be an election in March. Now, even after that election, I've told you how complicated the German system is. There are many parties, seats are allocated in many different ways. When the German system realized that 736 had become too unwieldy, you have a system where there is no limit to how many MPs will constitute your Bundestag. There will always be an uncertainty. You have to put some kind of a ceiling. So 2023, a new amendment was passed, which the president of Germany, who was a titular president, signed on, that now limits the size of Bundestag at 630. Now, when this election takes place in March, there will again be negotiations. First of all, it will take time allocating these seats based on this and that. It's a very complex system. Even after that happens, then coalition forming will take place. There is almost no way that parties of similar ideologies will have enough numbers to form a coalition. So the German system is set up in such a way, constitutional system and electoral system, and then the ideological party politics has compounded it in such a way that not only can one party ever get a majority, but even nor can the adherents of one ideology ever get a majority. See what's happening in Israel. Israel also has a proportionate representation system. But that system does not preclude the possibility of people of the same ideology or similar ideologies coming together to form a coalition. That's what's happened with Netanyahu now. The entire coalition in Israel now is basically defined in terms of who's how far to the right. They are all parties of the right. So in that situation, Netanyahu will be considered maybe a relative moderate compared to someone like Ben-Gvir, who's far on the right. The left in Israel has completely been demolished. It's finished. It doesn't exist. In Germany, it's not possible. One, because of the constitutional programming, and second, because of the evolution of the politics there. Now you see the current government, which is now falling or which has fallen. It has three members. It has three members. SPD, I told you the numbers as now, SPD 207, the Greens 117, and FDP 91. Now SPD is a socialist party of social democrats. In fact, when the left front decided to not join in, but support UPA one from outside, and they were interfering in its economics and foreign policy and many things. People used to say, Sanjay Baru wrote an article for us in the Indian Express. Sanjay Baru then used to be the editor of Financial Express, our sister paper. He wrote an article advising the Indian left to become like Social Democrats of Europe and Germany, right? So this is Social Democratic Party, essentially the party of the soft left in Germany and elsewhere in Europe as well. You have Labour Party in UK. Then the second party, the Greens are the Greens. They are for environmentalism. They want more bike paths, the more pedestrian walkways, right? They want higher taxes on fuel. They want more green power. They're also a bit nutty because they want to control carbon emissions. At the same time, they've started out by forcing the shutdown of all nuclear power plants in Germany. So how nutty can you be? I use that expression with great discretion that, I want to reduce emissions, but I will start reducing emissions by shutting down my nuclear power plants, which produce the cleanest power. And meanwhile, Germany and the rest of Europe starts burning more coal. Thank you very much. That's wonderful green thinking. Nevertheless, that is the second biggest member of this coalition. That is the Green Party, 117. Annalena Baerbock, the foreign minister of Germany, is from the Green Party or Green Party Alliance. And third is FDP. FDP, the Free Democratic Party, is actually a liberal party. It's a liberal party which believes in fiscal discipline, we told you about, lower taxes on the rich, incentives of the capitalist kind. So you have three parties with three different ideologies. I know in Maharashtra we have three-party coalitions and people say, oh, this is three parties. It's like a three-wheeler with three wheels of different sizes. How is it going to run? That's even literally correct. It's also correct in Germany. But in Germany, given that each one has a different ideology, it's a three-wheeler with three wheels not only of different sizes, but also going in different directions. One is going left, the biggest one is going left, the smallest one is going right, and the one in the middle is actually seeking some space higher up in some green utopia. So that kind of a coalition ideologically was unsustainable, but Germany has kept these going because they found their own versions of the common minimum program that was going on. That has now broken, and the reason that's broken is that German economy is in a crisis. Their economy declined by 0.3% last year. It will decline by 0.2% this year, although the expectation was it might grow by 0.2%, but no. So Germany has seen a 2-year consecutive recession after decades. They haven't even got the post-COVID bump. One of the reasons also is that Germany in Angela Merkel's time got so spoiled by getting cheap gas from Russia. Now that's not available because they've had to stop buying it. And they are having to buy energy from elsewhere. That's costing them more money. And because of the socialist overhang over this government, they are not able to carry out the reforms to improve their working environment, to make their industry more competitive, etc., etc. And Germany is suffering. And because of that, all of Eurozone suffers. Because remember, Germany even now, although between 2017 and 21, Eurozone saw a 5%, very good, 5% economic growth, brilliant. But Germany only saw 1%. Now think about it. Germany is 24% of all of Eurozone's economy. So Germany actually, being how big it is, Germany actually was a weight on the Eurozone growth. So Germany has been waiting for reforms for a very long time. And this finance minister, leader in this case of the smallest of the three members of this coalition, he was pushing for reform. And the dominant party, in fact, both of the other parties, larger parties, did not want it, and that's the reason he was fired. Now we started with Germany and its coalitions, and it's strange coalitions. It's strange coalitions of the kind you can't imagine. So I told you about the current one. The current one has a center-left party, right? Center-left party plus a party not just of the center-right, that's more than center-right. It's not right-wing party, that is AFD, that is the strong right-wing party, hard right party, which by the way has been growing, which now has 78 members, which is just a little less than FDP, the finance minister's party. So this is finance minister's party is way to the center of, say, AFD, but on the economy, it's a party, you can say it's a party of the right. And then you have the Greens. So if you think this is an unlikely coalition, see what Angela Merkel ran between 2005 and 2021. At many points, in fact, for long periods, she ran her government in partnership with her party CDU, Christian Democratic Union, which is the party of the center right. She ran her party in partnership with SPD. SPD is Olaf Scholz's party, and now the party of the socialists. So in fact, for quite some time, Olaf Scholz was the vice chancellor. Vice chancellor means like the deputy prime minister. Vice chancellor in a party where CDU had the chancellor. So I told you when I gave you that example that imagine BJP and Congress coming together and forming a coalition. Can't happen in India, but that is precisely what's been happening in Germany, because there it is absolutely necessary that you form a coalition, and you don't want a coalition of 20 other small parties. In any case, the system between the two sets of voting is set up in such a way that your seats cannot be divided among, say, 10, 15, 20, 30 small parties. So a repeat of the Weimar Republic is an impossibility. In that situation, the big parties have no choice but to get together. What we have today is a party of the left, a party of the right, and the party of the Greens. But in the past, we've also had the dominant party of the left, that is like the Congress party in India. Just for simplicity of definition, I'm not saying Congress party is a communist party. Like the Congress party on the left and BJP on the right getting together. That was CDU like the BJP. These are not direct comparisons. I'm just using these comparisons for simplicity of understanding. So CDU on the right, SPD on the left coming together because the country has to have a government. AFD now has 77 MPs, which is just a little less than the party of the finance minister, which is FDP. And once I'm done with Germany, we will look at something very important that's happened today. This was the last working day for Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, on which another very important order was given on the minority status of Aligarh Muslim University. Now for that, I will have our editor for legal coverage, Bhadra Sinha, join in, and she will answer a few questions. So Bhadra, 5 short questions. What exactly has happened in Supreme Court now? What has the court said on AMU and minority status?
So basically today, a Supreme Court bench of 7 judges
has... It's a constitution bench.
It's a constitution bench, and by majority of 4:3, which means 4 judges have given a verdict together and 3 have not concurred with that opinion. They have given a dissenting opinion. So by 4:3, the Supreme Court has actually laid down the broad parameters or principles to determine lay down the broad parameters to determine a minority educational institution. So it has technically not as of now declared whether the Aligarh Muslim University is a minority or not, but it has only, as I said, laid down the principles, enunciated the points. And in doing so, what it actually has done is it has overturned its own verdict of 1968, which was delivered by a 5-judges bench in a case called the Aziz Basha case, where it was held that AMU is not a minority educational institution because it derives its character through a statute, which is a law. What it actually...
Central law.
Central law. So what Aziz Basha actually held was that since AMU is established through a central law, its legal character as a minority institution is diluted, because for an institution to be minority and consequently enjoy the benefits under Article 30 of the Constitution, an institution should not only be established but also be administered by a minority group, a minority community, or a linguistic community. So Article 30 actually, protects minority and linguistic institutions Article 30, subclause 1 very specifically says that all minorities, whether based on religion or language, shall have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice.
So, as I understand, institution that is established under a central law or state law, any law, then the government has a say in its management, in its leadership, etc. Whereas if it was purely a minority institution, they will not have it. So
yes, they will not have a say when it comes to the administration bit.
Yes.
But yes, they will have a say when it comes to regulation bit.
Right.
Right? And regulation would mean like, UGC regulation, in the sense you will have guidelines for the for appointment of teachers, guidelines for intake of students. Those kind of guidelines can be given out by the government. But administration, as far as administration is concerned, the minority educational institution will have autonomy to do that.
yeah. So today's order says that because AMU is currently running as a minority institution, it shall continue to run so.
That's right. As of now, AMU will continue to run as a minority institution for the simple reason that following the 1968 judgment in the Aziz Basha case, an amendment was brought in the AMU Act, as I just mentioned earlier, by the central government, in which what it actually did was it took away the basis and the rationale by which the Supreme Court in 1968 had said that no, it is not a minority institution. Interestingly, this 1981 amendment to the AMU Act was challenged in 2004 before the Allahabad High Court when AMU went ahead and reserved 50% seats for Muslim students. This was challenged.
2004 is when UPA 1 comes to power.
That's right, yes.
So politically, it's a very important timing.
Yeah. And in 2006, the Allahabad High Court delivered a judgment where it struck down the amendment and said, no, AMU will continue to be a non-minority institution. It loses the minority status. This judgment was challenged in the Supreme Court. Interestingly, the UPA government, which was in power in the center at that time, it was one of the appellants before the Supreme Court. The AMU, as in the university, was also an appellant. And the AMU Old Boys Association was also an appellant. Now what happens is in 2016, the government changes in the center. BJP government comes to power.
So 2004, what happens? When this is challenged in Supreme Court, then what happens?
No, so when it is challenged in Supreme Court, the Supreme Court issues notice and imposes a stay on the Allahabad High Court judgment, which means that the minority character of AMU is restored. In 2016, when the government changes at the center, the BJP government decided to withdraw its appeal against the Allahabad High Court judgment. And it now became a opposition party, in the sense it was supporting the Allahabad High Court verdict. So,
which means that minority status of AMU should be taken away.
Should be taken away. That is what it had argued. So it basically became an AMU, which is Aligarh Muslim University, versus the central government in the Supreme Court, where the central government...
Whereas central government was with them earlier.
Yes.
Before the Modi era.
That's right.
Modi.
That's right. Yes.
So today's order has gone with the AMU.
For now, simply because the Supreme Court has not removed that stay which was imposed on the Allahabad High Court judgment. So for now, the AMU continues to be a minority institution. But the larger question on whether AMU is a minority institution or not is yet to be decided by another bench. This bench will take the basis which has been delivered today in this larger bench judgment. It will pick up the points from this judgment and then put it to the AMU case and decide whether AMU...
Because that will be a smaller bench than this one.
That's right. That will be a smaller bench. And that is exactly what the larger bench today has done.
So that way, what this bench has done will heavily influence what the other bench might do, although this is a 4:3 order.
Yes.
So judges can also draw their wisdom from dissenting orders in this case.
Not really, because since it's a 4:3 judgment, so the larger opinion, the majority opinion will prevail, and the bench which will take up the AMU matter is likely to be a 2-judges bench.
So AMU supporters of minority status can rejoice today?
For now, yes. For now, yes. Because, the crucial point which was actually laid down in the Aziz Basha judgment, which said that since there is a central legislation, and because there is a central legislation, an institution cannot have a minority character because the institution surrendered its minority status once it derived its power under a central law. That particular opinion or that particular principle has been overturned by this judge, by today's judgment.
So that's very important.
That's very important. But there are other factors that have been delineated in this judgment which would influence the future course of action in this case.
So thank you, Bhadra, for helping us understand this, because after all, 7 judges have had this argument and 4 have gone on one side, 3 on the other. So this is not a simple case.